Welcome to Pod Save the Youth. I'm David Seaton.
And I'm Markus Ceniceros.
We have a great show for you today. Marcus and I will tell you everything you need to know about the Iowa caucuses. We'll dive deep into the results from Monday night, how the results compare to past elections, and we'll discuss the role that youth played on the trail leading up to Monday, where we go from here in the primary calendar, and we'll play a round of Pod Save the Youth Iowa Caucus trivia. But first, this is our first episode of Pod Save the Youth. I've been active in a bunch of political campaigns, and I have been listening to Pod Save America and NPR for a long time, and I've always wanted to have a podcast. I can't think of a better team to start the show with than the team here at Pod Save the Youth.
Exactly. I'm going to echo David's words. Well, hello, everyone. I am Markus Ceniceros, proudly Arizona's youngest elected official, serving on a school board here in Arizona. I have worked on many political campaigns as well, and one issue I am most passionate about is climate action. And I'm beyond excited for this journey as we at Pod Save the Youth tackle issues that young voters truly care about in the upcoming 2024 election.
Awesome. Well, I'm ready to jump right into the results from Monday. Let's talk about Trump's performance. So he won by around 30 points. He beat second place finisher Ron DeSantis, getting 51% of the vote to Ron DeSantis' 21%, and Nikki Haley's 19%. He won every county except for one in Iowa City, and he dominated with every single group of voters, from young voters to old voters, college educated, non-college educated, rural, urban, suburban, uh, in every single county. What do you think about these results, Marcus?
I mean, these results were not shocking. I think what was more shocking is that learning about the Iowa caucuses, even as an entire process, not many people know about the Iowa caucuses. You actually can't even cast a ballot from home. You have to go to your local community center, or people even gather in their living rooms and they just vote by voice. And it's a really interesting process that not many Americans vote that way. I'm in Arizona. We don't need to do anything like that. We all cast a vote on a ballot, and that's kind of what we do here in Arizona. I think the shocking thing is to see Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley still refuse to even acknowledge that Donald Trump is going to be the nominee, whether they like it or not. I think it's really interesting to see how they are going to have to grapple with and share to their voters coming up in New Hampshire and South Carolina about just, do they even have a pathway forward?
Short answer would be no.
Exactly.
Except in Utah, or yeah, where Ron DeSantis is leading in Utah right now, and
Oh,
he and
wow.
no other candidate has qualified for the ballot in Nevada. So he's going to win two states. But
He's going to win two states, and we will see if Nikki Haley can even pull off one state.
we
We will.
shall see. I'm up here
Um,
I'm up here in Massachusetts, and I'm pretty close to New Hampshire, and I can tell you that the place where I'm seeing most Nikki Haley signs is public land,
Public land.
not on people's yards.
If you don't mind me asking, which signs have you seen the most of in people's yards?
In people's yards, it's been mostly Trump.
Trump?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not surprising at all. I think if we even look back at the 2016 results of the Iowa caucuses, people don't even know this. I didn't even know this until I've followed this one this year. Ted Cruz won in 2016. I mean, out of all people, Ted Cruz, and Trump even said that that election was rigged. He didn't even think that one was fair. He tweeted out during the night of the Iowa caucuses in 2016 that the election was rigged and that it should be redone. And so this is when people say, Trump just came out of nowhere in 2020 with election fraudulent. This is something he's been known for and he's done his entire life.
Years. Exactly.
Really,
From the
it was
beginning.
really interesting.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, so I think that obviously Iowa represents a very small percentage of the votes needed for Trump to win at the convention. And at these most recent Iowa caucuses, only around 15% of Republicans actually participated. We'll see what the
Hmm.
results are in New Hampshire and South Carolina and the rest of the early states, but I believe it's going to be around the same. Um, how much of the crosstabs do you think can be extrapolated to the wider electorate from what we've seen in Iowa so far, given the low turnout?
Given the low turnout in Iowa, I think it's kind of disappointing to see turnout. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that 50,000 people decided the results for Trump at an entire state. I think looking at Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley going into New Hampshire, um, I'm hoping that maybe one of them can pick up a 30% win, possibly. I think that people say if Ron DeSantis drops out, majority of his voters are going to go to Trump, and then what, quarter are going to go to Nikki Haley. But when we look at Nikki Haley, um, almost what is it, half of Nikki Haley voters said they would vote for Trump in a general election, and
Yeah.
then half of Ron DeSantis would go to Ron DeSantis or Trump. I mean, that's something that I'm still pretty shocked at.
Yeah. And what we've seen is that among Trump voters, DeSantis is definitely the second choice. And, among the other crowd, the Christie, Haley crowd, Biden is picking up around 50% of their voters in the general election, at least at this point. Who knows if they'll consolidate at the last minute around Republicans, but what we can see is that the Republican Party is, at least at this time, extremely far right.
Exactly, and I think one thing to note is that people, say this is an all-out win for Trump, but only barely half of the party in Iowa voted for him. And Iowa is one of the most conservative states in America. So if you take it
But then
to,
you add Vivek
mhm,
Ramaswamy to that. You add Ron
yeah,
DeSantis to that. I mean,
there's
that's
still majority
20%.
right-wing voters deciding the electorate.
Hmm.
So
I
we
would
also
say,
know that
yeah, yeah.
Vivek Ramaswamy also dropped out that night, and he endorsed Donald Trump. What are your take? Do you think he is really fighting super hard for vice president right now? What is your take on that?
So I have been compiling my list of people who I think will be Trump's VP for a while.
Go for it.
And I think, you're going to be happy about this. The person that's at the top right now is someone very close to home for you, Carrie.
Oh,
She was at the
Karen,
event in Iowa, Trump's
she
victory.
was. Hmm.
Behind her, I have Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Kristi Noem of South Dakota. And I think he's going to pick a woman because
Yeah.
I think he is, he's Trump. He's not strategic some ways, but in other ways, he wants to win. And if he finds someone who's loyal enough and also allows him to win, I think he's going to make that choice. I think he knows that Vivek Ramaswamy is, although he's loyal, he's someone who takes up a lot of the spotlight. He takes a lot of
Hmm.
attention. And the last thing that Trump wants to do is be outshined by another candidate.
So in other words, he wants Mike Pence back as vice president. That's what we're saying here. uh, just even if that, I mean, I'm looking at this as, I mean, what happened to Mike Pence? I mean, we don't, he just kind of up and just kind of left the Republican primary. Um, no, I agree with you on that, David. He definitely doesn't want to carry Lake, who is definitely a very prominent person, which here in Arizona, she's fighting for the Senate seat. I mean, we know Trump's other fighter in Arizona, Martha McSally, was very much well known for giving Democrats both of the Senate seats here in Arizona. So, I mean, Carrie Lake gave Governor Hobbs her seat as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see if she can hand Democrats another seat, or we even have to deal with Kirsten Sinema here in Arizona. So we're going to see it's in Arizona with the Senate race. It's going to be really interesting to see the dynamics of the process here, and even the Republican primary as it comes up in Arizona, way long ahead from this. But yeah, really interesting. I definitely think it's a very short list, and I think Trump's having a very hard time figuring out who he wants as his vice president.
Hmm. I think he knows he has obviously a base that is on his side, and that's
Hmm.
what he cares about the most. But he also knows to win, he needs to expand. And there is a considerable amount of the party that is leaving the MAGA movement. We saw in Iowa, I think it was 70% of the voters who caucused said they were part of the MAGA movement, and 30% said they weren't. And among that
Hmm.
30%, a large amount of those people are independents who make up the largest percentage of the political electorate in this country at this time and are going to be a critical block for both Democrats and Republicans to appeal to. And I think that Trump understands he has a problem at this time with independents, especially if he gets convicted in any of the cases.
Yeah, which I think it was kind of shocking, and you can correct me on this, but when I was reading, is that didn't he still get a majority of the independent voters, Trump?
I can check.
Because it was, I can't remember where I was looking at this, but I remember seeing him, even though independent voters, and people could say this, independent voters are still the deciding factor in presidential elections and in most competitive races. Um, so it was really, really interesting to see that. Um, what was your take on the mood of the Ron DeSantis campaign watch parties and the Nikki Haley watch parties?
DeSantis, well, first of all, they were very different. They were in very different campaigns. Um, and both of them ran very different campaigns from Trump. DeSantis
Hmm.
was not having any fun.
No,
He was out
definitely not
there
having any fun.
every day looking like he was trying to stay awake. I mean, yeah, his campaign will probably go down as the biggest disaster in Republican politics in a very long time. Um,
Agreed. I mean, I just want to
Haley,
jump in and just
yeah, okay.
add my favorite moment from Ron DeSantis in Iowa is when he is when he goes up to a young girl. He's talking to voters, and he goes up to this young kid, and this kid's holding something in her hand, and he's like, "What is that?" And she's like, "It's an icy." And he's like, "Wow, that must be a lot of sugar. Great." And then he just walks away from this kid after he says that what she's drinking is not good for her. Basically, I mean, I could not imagine being that 8 or 9 year old and having a potential president come up to me and tell me that what I'm doing is really bad, and I'm just trying to enjoy an icy at the state fair. I mean, I don't know. This guy's ability to even relate to a single other human being who is not a white, a white country club guy going down and playing golf at Mar-a-Lago is really hard for him to relate to a single average working class family voter, which is a majority of Americans. So he's definitely really has some work to do on his PR.
Absolutely. I think part of the reason why DeSantis had the performance that he did in Iowa versus his performance in Florida in the past is because in Florida he was running on his record, which
Hmm.
is incredibly popular in the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Um, among voters that supported Trump and voters that supported DeSantis or other candidates. I mean, in the debate, we saw that Nikki Haley said that the Don't Say Gay bill didn't go far enough because she's trying to appeal to these voters who approve of DeSantis's record. And
Hmm.
at the same time, as you said, he's completely incapable of appealing to any voter who actually meets him or hears him speak.
Hmm.
So when it was a referendum on his record, he won with Republicans. But when it was a referendum on his character, on his personality, like all Iowa caucus elections are, he lost. And he lost big.
And and here's the thing, he went to all 99 counties
He did.
in Iowa. He went to every corner of Iowa. And
Mhm.
this state said, No, thank you. And these are some of the most conservative voters in the country,
You have to
and
think,
they
what would the
still
result
said
be if he did not campaign?
exactly. If he didn't even
Could
go
it
to
have been
Iowa,
better?
he just went to New Hampshire, went to South Carolina. I mean, even during his speech, he said he's taking a trip to South Carolina first, then he's going to New Hampshire after that. I mean, I don't
Worked
know
out
what
for
he's
Biden.
doing exactly, just like Biden. Um, I don't know what he's doing. I personally would like to see him just drop out and see him and Nikki and see Donald Trump and Nikki Haley go at it. I think that would be really interesting to see happen.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
So on the topic of Nikki Haley, she had a she had a surge at the last minute, and she is having a surge right now. I don't necessarily know if her support can expand very much, though. I think
Hmm.
that she has kind of consolidated the people who are anti-Trump, and we see that both in Iowa with the results, um, and in New Hampshire where she got the endorsement of Governor Sununu, and where she's currently the second place candidate. It's yet to be seen what happens with Chris Christie's vote, who's also anti-Trump. My inclination is that his supporters are going to go to Haley, which could
Hmm.
push her over the top in New Hampshire, but we'll have to see. But she
I mean, it's
really surged at the right time.
yeah, she did, and I think a lot of people. I would add that I'm pretty impressed with Nikki Haley. The fact that she is, I'll give her credit that she is a woman coming into the Republican Party of all places and taking on Donald Trump. I wouldn't say taking on Donald Trump. I'll take that back. To a certain extent, I mean, challenge him to the very slightest, at least showing up in the room with him. Um, it's really interesting, but I just kind of want to go into some of the activists in the Democratic Party who made some
Yes.
interesting and fun remarks at some of Nikki Haley and Donald Trump's
Everyone's events. Yeah.
everyone's events. They came into everyone's.
Mhm.
And what do you think? What do you think? Sunrise Movement
Yeah.
came in. March for Our
So,
Lives activists came into one protest.
so the context behind this is that obviously Iowa, a few weeks ago, Iowa had a mass shooting in
Hmm.
a school shooting. Um, and as a result, March for Our Lives protesters protested the state capitol, and they have been very active in the states leading up to the Iowa caucuses. They
Yeah.
pressed candidates, as they should, after the shooting on their stances on gun policy, and the results were pretty embarrassing for the Republicans.
Yep.
But um, I don't know. I think it was definitely worth it for them. They got their name out there. They looked like they were fighting. They were fighting. And the same story with the Sunrise Movement.
Yeah, I just want to give a personal shout out to Sunrise Movement. I know people who were there disrupting the Trump rally, the Robert Salmi rally, and they tried to do Nikki Haley, but they couldn't get in. But they did confront her outside of the place she was at. Um, and it's amazing to see our generation show up and hold these Republican candidates accountable for climate action, for more comprehensive gun reform in our country, because these are issues that young voters care about. I mean, it's a norm for us to go to school and have to have a plan about where we're going to go if there is a shooting in our campuses. It's a norm for us to have to worry about the ever addressing impact of climate change that is going to drastically change the way we live, work, and play in America. So it's amazing to see them, and a big shout out to them. Um, yeah, that is.
Yeah, I think that too often what we see in our own party is that we're we're focusing on criticizing ourselves for good reason because we have people that we need to hold accountable.
Hmm.
But we also have to point out the reality that regardless of the differences that we are vastly more similar in the Democratic Party than we are from Republicans. And we have to show people that uh, through these protests, through all the activism that's happening with Sunrise and March for Our
Hmm.
Lives,
No,
especially
agreed. And I think,
on social media. I think that our generation definitely gets caught up often in kind of ideological purity, but we have to point out that, our differences are big and we also hold ourselves accountable, but we also have to hold the
mhm.
other side accountable too.
No, exactly. I 100% agree with that. I think the other thing that goes hanging, holding people accountable is holding Nikki Haley accountable to making her realize that slavery was the cause of the Civil War, and that our country did go into a civil war because of slavery, because the South wanted to keep it and the North didn't. Just a history lesson, Nikki Haley, if you happen to tune into this, that is the reason why it did happen, and I hope you do know that. But what was your take on that? I mean, it is just, I think I think that really even I think that even turned off people in the Republican Party, the moderate conservative
Yeah.
Republicans.
Uh, it's a long trend that's been going on for years of
Hmm.
Republicans denying elections, denying the truth, denying our history,
Yep.
all to advance their agenda. And my favorite part of this whole debacle was um, Governor Sununu again having to answer for Nikki Haley's gaffe on State of the Union.
Hmm.
And but again, like absolutely, they absolutely have to answer for it. Like if
They
you
do.
are endorsing these people, you have to answer for, their opinions, all of them.
No, 100% agree. It's just it is very sad to see her. She knows very well.
Mhm,
She's a smart girl. She if I can even say that she's a smart girl. She knows that that is the cause of the Civil War. She knows everything that she's saying when it comes. She knows all of Trump's lies are lies, and she knows that they're all not truthful at all. So she'll have to live with those decisions that she thinks that are going to help her politically when they're actually not going to. When she's
mhm.
campaigning herself as
Right.
a Mitt Romney Republican and a John McCain
Exactly.
Republican. So yeah, I mean, John
Yeah,
McCain had
that's
the courage in 2008 to go up and tell one of his own voters that Obama is a decent person, and just because I'm running against him, that doesn't make him my enemy.
mhm.
So it was really interesting to see that.
Yeah. I think that overall Nikki Haley has been relatively disciplined in her messaging. Um, but this was certainly a gaffe that could have cost her a lot of voters, especially in the group given the group that's backing her right now are the moderates,
Hmm.
the people who are college educated, who understand
Hmm.
the truth of our history. I don't see how this helps her.
No, I don't see how it does.
I mean,
Okay.
unless she's trying to expand into the DeSantis group, which I don't think she's going to do.
No, it's a classic politician move, trying to appeal to the worst of anyone in this country just to get elected to an office and say things that they know are not true. Um, okay, well, David, if you want to give us a quick summary of what happened in Iowa and what we should know in closing, I think I would love that.
Yeah. Um, well, I want to say one more thing. I think that
Hmm.
I know that the issue that was motivating most Republicans in the Iowa caucuses was the issue of immigration. And you know this as someone in Arizona, the rhetoric has been heating up about the border, and it is dangerous. What DeSantis has been saying recently is that the next step, DeSantis and Governor Abbott of Texas, they've been saying that the next step to secure the border is to shoot migrants.
Oh my
Literally,
God.
DeSantis has said repeatedly that to secure the border, he has to shoot migrants stone cold dead. That's their stance. And
Well, I
again,
can say that
it's a
that's
long
definitely not.
it's a long cycle that's been happening for
Hmm.
years of this growing extremism on the issue of immigration, starting with Trump, but it's gotten out of hand and it has to be called out. And as Democrats, we have to, articulate where we stand, that, the border is an issue, but we have to tackle this with humanity. I have to see, in the words of George Bush, that family values don't end at the Rio Grande.
No, that is well, first of all, Ron DeSantis and Governor Abbott don't care about the border. They don't care about immigration. They use it as an issue to rally their base around. They could care less about advocating for comprehensive immigration reform. It's interesting you mentioned this because the Biden administration actually has introduced several pieces of legislation to address the broken immigration system that is in America.
Mhm.
And it passed in the House when Democrats controlled the House in the beginning of his administration. It passed the House, but Republicans refused to pass it in the Senate. So
Why
Democrats
could that
have.
be? Why could that be?
Why could that
Because
be? I don't know. Maybe it could
because
help Biden politically.
maybe and maybe it's their top issue on the campaign.
Yeah, yeah. So they don't
And
want
maybe
to
some
address
people
it.
want to have this issue to talk about because they don't want to talk about abortion. They don't want to
Mhm.
answer for questions about banning books or, not telling the truth about our history. They want to talk about the border.
Oh, and
And
it's
it's
funny you mentioned this
a
because
killing issue for them.
I was recently at the opening day of the state legislature here in Arizona, and Governor Hobbs, the opening issue of her State of the State address was the border. And she
Mhm.
called out President Biden for not addressing the crisis that is on the border. But we have to recognize that I agree with you on that. This is not a, you know, illegal alien issue. This is a humanitarian issue. These
100.
are people who just want to have a good life, who want to grow as individuals, and we need to give them those opportunities. And when politicians want to play politics with people's lives, it's the reason why we have all of these issues in our country in the first place, because politicians refuse to address those issues and kick the can down the road for years and years and years and years and years with the climate crisis, with abortion rights, with immigration, with gun violence. I mean, these are all issues that politicians use for political gain and they kick the cans down the road. The next administration will do it. The next legislative session, we can address that issue. It has to stop. It has to stop, and we need to treat these people with love because America was founded on immigration. We are a country of immigrants, and we will
Absolutely.
always be a country of immigrants. So, yeah.
Yeah, and something my sister was pointing out to me recently is that a lot of these candidates on the Republican side are much more um, personally tied to our immigration system than
Hmm.
President Biden.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nikki Haley's parents are immigrants. Donald Trump's wife
Hmm.
is an immigrant.
Yeah.
DeSantis' wife is an immigrant. But there is a divide right now that Republicans are trying um, to foster between immigrant communities that are here legally and immigrant communities that are here undocumented immigrant communities. And I think that's an extremely dangerous divide to foster because it denies the humanity of people who
Yeah.
are just trying to flee for a better life and are victims of the fact that our immigration system is as broken as Republicans are saying it is.
Yeah. And that's the one issue that we can all agree on, apparently. Immigration system is broken, but Congress doesn't want to fix it because
Yes.
it's a political issue that Republicans love to go to their base and tell them that, well, if you elect us to Congress, if you know, and people have to remember this is a
Mhm.
federal issue, not an Arizona state legislature issue, not the Texas state legislature issue. It is a federal issue. And no matter what Governor Abbott wants to do about it, no matter what Governor Hobbs wants to do about it, no matter what any governor along the border wants to do about it, it's a federal issue.
Mhm.
And that, but what they can do is they can use their offices and their political influence to pressure Congress and to pressure the Biden administration to further take action on this federal issue. And
But it has to be
not
more
only
than
is
enforcement.
exactly.
All right. Well, that's where we're going to leave the discussion for today. We do
Yep.
have a game, Iowa Caucus Trivia. Marcus, do you have your questions ready?
Yes. Well, it's been a long year in politics. So, like David said, we're gonna at the end of each episode, we're gonna lighten the mood and hopefully test the knowledge of politics, history, current events. Today we'll be playing a round of Iowa caucuses, like David said, trivia. Each of us has three questions prepared, and whoever answers the most correctly wins. I do have my questions ready. Do you have your questions ready?
I do.
Okay. You want to go first? You want to do a pick and pick?
All right. You've heard about have you heard about the full Grassley? What we were talking about with DeSantis, traveling around all the counties in Iowa to
Yes.
campaign. How many counties does Iowa have? What defines a full Grassley?
A full Grassley. Oh my gosh. I'm all I know is from reading the little much I knew at the moment is that there are 99 counties in Iowa, but I don't even know 99 counties.
Fantastic. You have 1 point.
Also, like going into this, where was Chuck Grassley in this whole process?
No
Our
idea.
famous Iowa senator.
I don't know. In DC.
Okay, now my turn.
All
What
right,
was your
Marcus won.
favorite? I won, so one is zero right now. What was your favorite Ron DeSantis moment?
Oh, is that even a question?
It is, yeah. It's a
Gotta
good
be the
question.
icy. Do
The
I get a
icy
point
one?
for that? That wasn't really a question.
No. That was just okay. Okay. Are we better at this? Did Ron DeSantis tell a 8-year-old kid that their IC has too much sugar in it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, there you go. Ding, ding, ding. You got one to one.
Fantastic. All right. Uh, what percentage of Republicans voted in this Iowa caucus? I said it earlier. We'll see if you can remember.
Oh my Lord, what percentage? Well, I know it was either Republican voter base in Iowa. I want to say it was about 20%.
15.
15. Oh my gosh.
Ah,
Okay, well, I was close.
all right. Question for me.
Okay, we are down to what? One to two. One Marcus, two to David. Um, do you think, and I'm asking you, this is just a question I think I want to get your take on. Who do you think will be the last to drop out? I know it's in a question, but I want to get your take.
I mean, I thought it was going to be Asa Hutchinson, but he dropped out. I think it's got to be Nikki Haley.
You think she'll be the last one to drop out
I think
before
so.
Trump gets a nominee? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna agree with you on that too. Um, okay, we'll see what happens on that.
All right. This is kind of a joke.
Go for it.
Who was the first Canadian to win an Iowa caucus?
Oh my gosh. I I don't even know where
I
to
was
start on
hoping we'd
this.
have another, when I wrote this, I was hoping we'd have another member of our team joining us.
Well, if they are watching, I do not know the answer to that question, and I have no response. Who
Ah,
was it?
Ted Cruz, born in
Ted.
Calgary. No, sorry, born in Montreal, from Calgary.
Wait, what?
Hmm.
Look at that. You learn something new every day. I did not even know that. Oh my gosh. I mean, okay. Yeah, that makes sense now. Okay. Good job, David. Good one.
All right.
Um,
Question for me.
okay. In closing, um, who did the governor of Iowa endorse in the primary?
Ron DeSantis.
Ron DeSantis. Ding, ding, ding.
I
Okay, David,
win.
what is the tally?
I honestly I wasn't keeping track.
It was definitely you. You're definitely
All
the
right.
winner. I'm gonna give it to you. I'm
Well,
gonna give it
thank
to
you
you.
for joining our first episode of Pod Save the Youth. I'm David Seaton.
And I'm Marcus Ceniceros.
Join us next time on Pod Save the Youth.
Take care, y'all.